of you and many more who are about to join. We have about 110 people who have registered for this fabulous event, who are dialing in and zooming in from all these places you saw, not only our chapter members, but also members of many other chapters around the world, guests from Germany, Netherlands, Canada. Oh boy, we've got such a great crowd. And a special thanks to Marcia Renoylds, our guest speaker, for being here. A special thanks to Petra Russell, who is on our board, for having arranged this event, and to our board members, all who are on this call. And I just want to thank everyone. And I'm going to pass it off to Nahid for a few instructions on logistics. So enjoy the show.
All right, Greta, thank you. So we really want to make the most of our time with Marcia today. So what we're going to do is refrain from asking questions until after the coaching demonstration. So, and the other thing we're going to do is we're all going to be on mute throughout the portion of Marcia's initial presentation. So you're going to have plenty of time to ask questions, but we're going to request that you ask them after the coaching demonstration. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a coaching demonstration. So we're going to want a volunteer. We're going to choose the volunteer from chat. So for those of you who are interested in volunteering, we want anyone who has a challenge that they'd like to be coached on by Marcia, and they don't mind being coached kind of on the recording. This is like an excellent opportunity. We don't want it to be on business development. We'd like it to be on some kind of a coaching challenge other than business development. So I guess that would be anything. And Marcia, do you have anything to add to that parameter, or did I say it well?
You did.
You're on mute, Marcia.
I prefer something like a challenge with someone you work with or live with, or just, you know, what's getting in your way. I just don't want it to be something where you're actually looking for me to mentor you. That's all. That's why I say it's not about business development. Okay?
Perfect. Yep. So that's the parameter. And what we're going to do is, for those of you who are interested, we'll have you just volunteer in the chat. And then what we'll have Marcia do is and volunteer by stating, you know, I'm willing to be coached and this is my issue. And just if you can share the topic that you want to be coached on, that'll make it very easy for Marcia to select someone when she's ready to do the coaching demonstration. And then we will have our Q&A after the coaching demonstration. Okay, so thank you very much. And Greta, should I turn it back to you?
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Nahid. At any time, if you have any questions, just type them into chat and we'll be sure to answer it. So now over to Petra to introduce Marcia. Thanks.
I am getting the best part here. Thank you, Greta. And hello, everyone. And thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Coach the Person, Not the Problem, where Dr. Marcia Renoylds will be guiding us through the use of reflective inquiry in coaching. It is my great honor and pleasure to introduce Marcia, who continues to be a great inspiration to me personally. And as a fellow coach, Dr. Marcia Renoylds is the president of Co-Visioning and a master of teaching others how to engage in powerful conversations that connect, influence, and activate change. Her focus is on behavioral science with a doctor's degree in organizational psychology and 2 masters in education and communication. And she often shares her latest discoveries in her blog, podcasts, and books, her latest with the very title of our webinar today. Her approach, particularly for difficult conversations, offers solutions for mental shifts, even when emotions are very strong. And we all know how those situations look like, feel like, and sound like. Marcia helps global organizations to grow their leaders in over 40 countries to date. And she is recognized by Global Guru as one of 5, or the number 5 coach actually in the world and one of 10 coaches that it's induced by the ICF into their circle of distinction. With much gratitude for your presence here today, I hand it over to you, Marcia, and thank you again for being here with us today.
Thank you so much. Okay, so this is Pat. I'm going to start with slides, and we don't have a lot of time because, of course, I want to give you everything I know, which isn't possible. I'm going to give you some highlights, and then, you know, make sure we have at least like 15, 20 minutes for the demonstration of what it is that I'm teaching, is what I'm looking to show you, because I think that's much more powerful than abstractly showing you with pretty PowerPoint slides. But the PowerPoint slides will give you the foundation. I continue to research and write because actually in the late 1980s, I got my second master's in adult learning and instructional design. And I went on this search for how do people learn? How can I help them to grow their minds? And I got better at classes, and people would get excited and say, this is great. And then they'd go out, and as soon as it felt awkward, they go back to doing the same old thing. And so that's what I kept, you know, why I even, you know, kept with my research, my degrees. But it wasn't until I found coaching. It's like, oh, this is a different form of learning. So I look at coaching as a learning technology, not a psychology. I look at it on the use of the memories in the brain and how do we expand our perception so it changes our behavior, it changes our mind, it changes how we see things, it changes what we then do. So that's what I come at this. Somebody messaged me on LinkedIn that said, well, you know, your view of the brain doesn't map with so-and-so. And I'm like, but we come at it different. You know, so if you're looking at learning, looking at the different memories we have, is still the same. So I'll explain that a little bit. But I think it's really important that we know this, especially when we're trying to sell coaching. Why coaching? Why coaching? Now, I have to tell you, this has been the busiest January I've had in my 25 years as a coach. You know, because people are finally, the companies here, I've seen it in other countries much faster than here, but they're finally getting that our leaders must connect better. They must create meaningful experiences, not disconnected conversations. You know, they have to have empathy. There's different ways of being with people that are critical right now. And so, you know, I'm sorry that the circumstances opened up the possibility, but the possibility is there. But we've known always, because so I ran training departments in companies for 16 years before I became a coach. So I came out of the corporate world. And we've always known you just can't tell people what to do and have them do it. And like I said, even if they then go try, as soon as it gets awkward, they find an excuse for not doing it. But it's also, as Amy Edmondson said, it's hard to learn when you already know. And most people already, because the brain's a meaning-making machine, to feel comfortable and safe, they believe in the meaning they make out of every situation. So they already think they know what's best. And so telling is not effective. And people get really stuck in their stories. As Einstein said, reality is an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. You know, we make up our world, but we think it's real. We think it's real. And the stories are even stronger when stressed, like now, when emotions overpower our observing and thinking mind. We do have an observer mind, and that's in coaching what we activate. We have people actually observe their thinking. They can't do this on their own. It's very, some people can, but only with a lot of practice. And then when there's emotions, even then, it just overpowers. And, you know, they say we make decisions with our emotions and then rationalize and justify them with our logic. And so we have a hard time discerning what's real, what's not real, what I should do, what I shouldn't do, especially on our own. So as Carl Sagan said, you know, when we have stronger emotions, we're liable to fool ourselves. So whether it's based in fact or fiction, beliefs, what I believe to be true about a situation, is just an invention to help make us have meaning about a situation. So, you know, I could say, get up and say who I think I am and how I see my world without thinking. If I wake up going, who am I, where am I, every day, that's a little difficult. Although I'm sure in my life I've done that. So the truth is that everybody should have a coach in terms of being able to examine their thinking, to think beyond what they believe to be true right now so they can see new possibilities. And that's the great value. That's the distinction of coaching, and that's the great value of coaching. So telling people what to do either pacifies their brains. You know, they actually see when you tell someone what to do, the brain gets fairly quiet. It doesn't make connections, or it activates their resistance. No, I'm not going to do that. Who are you to tell me what to do? So what we need is an external disruptor, somebody to disrupt our thinking patterns. That's what the neuroscientists call when we get someone to think about their thinking, it's an external disruption. For me to sit down and say, I don't know why I think that way. Let me think about it. The questions we ask, the statements we share, cause the disruption that make them stop and look at their thinking. Again, this is the gift and the great value, the distinction of coaching, that we help people see through the fog of fear, doubt, and anger. And the more dense that is, the harder it is for them to see through it on their own. So sometimes when we're coaching, it does feel like, oh, I'm never going to get anywhere with this person. You know, they keep going round and round, but it's only because we're working in a very dense space with them, and that we have to just keep at it and sharing what I hear you say, you know, and then asking the question. So they keep, you know, it finally will prompt them to see it. So I always say, stay with it, trust the coaching process, and see what comes up. So coaching is a transformational process. It changes the way we think. It clears the fog so something new can emerge. It's a new formation of thought. So the question we're always asking is, what's getting in the way of this smart, resourceful person from seeing their own way forward? So that's why simply coaching, yeah, we have to know where we're going. And that's why I hate calling it setting agreement. I think that's silly. It's setting the desired outcome. What is it the person wants that they don't have right now? Once we know where we're going, then what's stopping this person from getting there? So coaching isn't about helping someone make a decision. They can make a decision on their own without you. What's stopping them from making the decision? What will the decision give them once they make it? Those are the things we have to explore. You know, the other day I listened to a coach just help the person make a plan. Well, why can't the person go make a plan on their own? I want to know why they're not taking that time. You know, I had a client once, a very high senior VP who said, you have to tell me how to prioritize. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. And I just let her sit for a bit. And I said, so let me get this straight. You're the senior VP of HR of one of the largest retail chains in the US. Prior to this, you worked in a corporate law firm and you were very successful. And you went to a really good law school. I have to think that somewhere along the way, you learned how to prioritize. What's stopping you now? After a long silence, she said, I've lost my vision. I don't know why I'm here. I said, that's a different conversation. Is that the one you want? So it took us down a different way. Of course, she knew how to prioritize. I'm not going to coach her on how to prioritize. She can go find that on the internet. You know, but what's stopping this person? So sometimes our clients do just need a sounding board. I had a bank president for 8 years. And most of the time I sat in her office and I listened to her talk, and I occasionally reflected what she was saying and asked some questions. And at the end, she said, thank you, thank you. This is so important to me. I don't know what I'd do without you. Well, key word there, if you heard, I said she was a bank president. She did not feel safe opening up anywhere else but with me, you know, and so that feeling of safety and being able to be herself and say whatever was on her mind meant so much to her. It was of great value. And I coached her a little bit. I would not turn in those recordings to the ICF, but 8 years we had this relationship until the banks crashed and her company went down. And she now runs a stitchery store and is as happy as can be. So most of the time, we want to really uncover what's blocking them from taking the next step, because we are thinking partners. We're not doctors, we're not therapists, we're not consultants, we're not mentors. We are a partner. That's the ICF definition. It's a partnering of equals. So I have my experience, but I'm no different than you. You have your experience. And I'm just going to help you think. And of what great value that is, because there's very few people in this lifetime that will help you to do that. And that's what I tell people when they ask me about coaching them, and they, executives, like, how do you coach? I say, I'm going to help you think, because you're pretty smart and you know your company. But something's confusing you, or there's just a lot of stuff getting in the way. I want to help you to see through it so you know what's best to do. And they're always fine with that. So thinking partner, that's how I define it. So if they feel stuck, afraid, anxious, lost, overwhelmed, at least start a conversation with coaching. So, I teach leaders coach to a lot of companies around the world as well. And I always tell them in a couple of workshops, I'm not going to make you be a coach, but at least I'm going to give you a coaching approach. So start your conversation with coaching and see what comes up. See if you can discover what the person really needs. Because if you jump onto the first thing, it's probably not what they need. And if you tell them what to do based on what you first hear, then you're wasting your breath. So at least start with coaching. So what we're doing, like I said, we're creating a transformational, which is internal. And that's why it's coach the person's thinking. So yes, I'm helping them to solve a problem that they're facing, but the coaching is around their thinking. It's an internal process, not transactional, where I'm just looking at what's out there, what's the problem, what have you tried, do a SWOT analysis. What are the threats? What are the rewards? That's a problem-solving external process. So it looks like this. So transactional. The word trans means to cross over. You cross over to a new action. So you still got to know what the person wants to create, and then you explore different ways of different things of what they can do. But when we're dealing with transformation, oftentimes there must be a letting go for the new thought to emerge, for the new possibilities, for the perspective to come to light. And that way they can expand their story. And that's why we call it a deep dive, that, we listen to fears, doubts. I always question what comes up after they use the word but, because usually that indicates a fear. And the word should usually indicates a conflict of values, either the person and their own values. I know I should do this, but then you got a should and a but, or, a conflict with their spouse, a conflict with society. Especially right now, there's a lot of shoulds going on with family situations. You know, and again, putting them on the table, how do they know that it's going to disrupt people's lives, like they're saying? You know, the fears, are they willing to move forward anyway, even though there's a possibility? There's always a possibility with the risk that something could happen. What's the possibility that something good could happen as well? We share observations and ask about the meaning. When they say certain words, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by irritation? You know, explain to me what that means to you. What's irritating you? How does that, you know, how are you reacting? Always explore the words that they use. Don't assume that you understand. And then oftentimes we will invite them to shift their desired outcome at the end, because new things come up. And there's so much more. And if you look on my website, covisioning.com, I blog about a lot of different things, and I have a lot of resources there for you to use, because I know I'm going through this quickly. But then we always have to ask them to articulate, you know, when we say new awareness or evoking awareness with the new competency, what's coming up for you now? What are you seeing? What's emerging? Always ask that before you ask them what they're going to do. They have to articulate the insight and then state the actions. If you wait to the end of the coaching session to say, well, what did you learn here? It's done. They already made their actions. Don't do it then. You know, what was the other day the person asked, so what value did you get out of this session? I'm like, if you ask what value, you're just asking them to evaluate you. So don't wait. The moment you see the aha in their eyes, ask, what's coming up for you now? What are you learning about this situation? What does it mean to you? You know, and then see if there's anything that they want to do in terms of steps. So that's the process. That's the process. So we help them to see their stories by reflecting their words, emotions, expressions, and then ask questions. So I do ask questions, but I use reflection a lot, and then ask the question after. So what we're doing is having people climb a tree in their mind so they can look down on their stories and see the connections and faults in their thinking. And then they objectively, it's like they can hold the story out in front of them and say, oh, look at that. This is how I'm thinking. And they can see how it's not serving them, what serves them and what doesn't. So our brain is a box of stories, and the stories identify who I think I am and my reality. So we hold on to these stories with strength because this is how we define ourselves in a day and give meaning to ourselves and our reality. And we don't give up on these stories easily, you know, and again, this is why you need a coach. We coach people to see their stories. You have to see the story to separate the past from the facts that we're facing right now. So disruptive reflections and curious questions make people pause and look inside at their stories, opening the door to seeing themselves in the world in different ways. So this is called insight-based learning, as opposed to fact-based learning, fear-based learning. There's insight-based learning, where people have an aha moment. It works in the middle brain where the creative process occurs and where we hold our stories. And ego is just how I define myself and my world. It's not bad. We all have ego because this is how we exist on this planet. But the moment that I can break through and actually see beyond and expand who I think I am and how I see the world, then new possibilities emerge on their own. People see what it is they need to do. And this is what breakthrough coaching is about, is that when the frames around the stories crack and a new perspective can actually pop through, that's when the magic of coaching happens. So just briefly, you'll see me, you know, I'm going to ask you to look for this when I coach. And I realize because we only have a few more minutes and I want to do that. And then I'll share with you if there's any time left here. But we always reflect what we're seeing, what we're hearing, what we're noticing, even what we're sensing, but we just offer it, and then they can say we're wrong. They can say we're wrong. So start with, so what you're telling me is this, is that true? Or you got really quiet when you were talking about that person. You shifted. What was going on there? It was almost like sadness. You know, I remember saying that to a leader. He says, no, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. And then he told me why. Just because I noticed, he got quiet. He got quiet. So we share, the reflection is so critical. And again, that's why I wrote Coach the Person, not the problem, because we got so stuck in the powerful question and coaching is about questions. No, it's not. It was never meant to be. Reflections were always written into the competencies from the very beginning. And know that I was on the board of the ICF when we rolled out the competency, the first competencies and certifications. So I know that it was never intended just to be questions. So we offer observations, and especially about the process. If they hesitate, if they deflect, just say, whoa, okay, you kind of backed off there. What's going on? What was it that was uncomfortable for you? Just ask about it. Ask about it. And then at the end, we always acknowledge them for their willingness to be with us. And the last thing that I want to share with you here is that emotions indicate there's something else to be said. Okay, so please, please, please don't be afraid of people's emotions. Don't jump in to fix them. I don't care if they cry. Just breathe, love them, hold the space. They will come through it. If you jump in to give them a Kleenex and take care of them and say, oh, no, it's okay. Don't do that. You weaken them. You weaken them. So we always notice, nervous laughter. So what was it that was a little uncomfortable for you? Or often if they look away. So what's coming up in your mind? You looked away there. What were you thinking of? What were you looking for? Anytime they quickly agree with you, yeah, that's right. It's like, okay, so tell me what it is that you're agreeing with. But defensiveness, hesitation. We have to allow people the full processing of their emotions. When we deny emotions, we deny them a piece of their humanity. Coaching must be the safe space where people can show up fully as themselves. And it could be the only time in their day where they can fully be themselves and not have to play a role and pretend they're not upset because they don't want to show it to other people. And they can be themselves with us. And we just allow it, and then we help them to process it. And it's amazing what occurs, what comes up. Okay, so, and I will make sure that you get a copy of my slides. There was just a couple of things about, about mental alignment and setting the outcome. In fact, I want to show you one thing, since most people don't get this. When I said it's the desired outcome, make sure that you always have a desired outcome. Flip it to a positive. Don't get stuck on their problem, or you'll chase them. So what is it they want instead of what they have now? Always try to discover that. And it could take the entire session. So nobody says you have to have the agreement in the first 5 minutes. You'll have a starting point of what the person wants, but it'll probably evolve. So this is one that seems to be one of the hardest things for coaches to get. And I know that my school didn't teach it to me, and a lot of schools don't teach it because we didn't fully clarify it. So even the naming and setting the agreement for the session it's misleading. I can agree that we're going to solve your problem, how to, go talk to your boss. Okay, but that's not it. It's like, so what would you like this conversation to look like? And if they define it, it's like, so can we look to see what you might do to create that? And if it's even possible. if it's even possible. I often will ask, is this a reasonable expectation you have? And sometimes they'll back off and say, no, not really. It's like, okay, can we define what you want to create for something that's reasonable now, and maybe you can create it more fully later on. If we don't do this, we chase them. So I'm going to go ahead and stop.
And Marcia, I compiled a list of the volunteers to make it easy for you to choose. Would you like me to run through the topics?
No, where are they? Oh, you wrote it. Run through them, and if I hear a good one, I'm just going to say stop. We don't need to hear the whole thing.
Okay. So Rena has how to help my teen son see more positively in the pandemic. Christopher has a romantic relationship. Raphael has struggling coaching leaders who want more mentoring than coaching. Mm-hmm. Catherine has multiple future paths to consider. And Rhonda wants to change her story about having to work 13-hour days and not having time to coach.
That's a good one. I would say for this, the ones about getting my team to do something, the coaching would still be around you. You don't coach anyone not in the room. Please know that. I'm not going to coach you to deal with your team differently unless you're wondering what's not working for you now and how you might change. I'm not going to change your team. So I'm going to hold off on those because that would take a little bit more. So in terms of then, there's one, career options, and then the last one was time in the day. Okay, I'm going to have people raise their hand. So how about, which one do you want to hear? Career options, raise your hand. No. Okay. Time in the day? Yes, no. You want to hear how to manage your day? Okay. We're going to do that. Here's what I'd like. Who is it? Who is that?
This will be Rhonda.
Rhonda, I'm going to coach you. Everybody else, could you please turn off your video and so you only see me and her. Where's Rhonda? Hi, Rhonda. Okay. Tana, could you please turn off your video? And I think
Gloria.
Okay.
Marcia. Also, if you could turn off your video, please.
Okay. Gloria? You don't know how. And Jill must have disappeared. We'll just ignore that. If you're there, Jill, please turn off your video. Rhonda, okay. Thank you. I sort of remember what you said, but not fully. So share with me just a little bit. What's the challenge you're facing?
My story is that my days are 13-hour days between working and commuting. And as you were talking and I was taking notes, at the end, I wanted to cry because the basic premise was that I'm tired of it being so hard.
Mm-hmm. So I'm tired of it being so hard. So is it that you're wanting to deal with, the feeling of this is just too hard? Or is it yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I really think so. I live in California, but I live in the mountains, and I live alone. So there's a lot of snow right now, and I'm here at a hotel for about 4 days because it's just hard. and I'm here so that I can go back and forth to work, and I'm just tired of it being so hard. It just makes me sad.
Okay. And this is something that you have to live with for a while, the work that you do. And
yes, I'm looking to retire in 4 years, and that makes me very happy. And I thought of retiring prior to that, and I might be able to. I just don't know if it's the smartest thing for me to do as far as finances and stuff go. And that's
okay. I just wanted to know what the flexibility was. That's all. All right. So what you said, what was so profound, I love that you coached yourself from the very beginning, was that you did say that it's 13-hour days, and there's commuting, and it's so hard. So Rhonda, is it about changing how you feel about this situation? Is that what you want to do?
That's what I want to do. Yes. Because lots of people commute, lots of people have, do more time than I do, and their jobs are 13-hour days. My job isn't just 8 hours. It's just commuting on either end.
Okay. But don't compare yourself to other people. For you, it feels hard.
Yeah.
So tell me, Rhonda, what is it that you would like to wake up and feel instead of what you're feeling now?
I have my life back.
You have your life back. So what you're telling me is you don't feel like you're in control of your life right now.
Yeah, kind of, because it feels that I give to my work. I do what I need to do to live where I live. And that doesn't seem to be easy. And it's a beautiful place. I think I would like to enjoy it more. And I just spend so much time away that it just feels like I don't have, like I'm always on. I don't feel like I have a lot of time to just enjoy life.
So that's really what you want, is that you want some moments to enjoy your life. Okay. So what would you say is the biggest thing that's keeping you from enjoying your life right now?
I think how I see it all, how I'm saying it's hard.
So you're defining it. That's your story. This is hard. This is hard. And so it's hard because you say so.
Yeah. Because I can find a joy in that, I'm on the train and I can write. Someone else is driving. I really like that. When I shovel, I do enjoy it to a point. That's the thing. I enjoy these things to a point. I just don't want to do it forever.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple things happened here. When you said it's me just saying it's hard, you smiled, you knew that was a big thing, that you're creating this. And then you told me a number of things you can do. So you already know what you can do to appreciate your time, that you can write and appreciate somebody else's driving and not you. So you already know that. So what brought you here to say my life is hard?
The first thing that comes up for me is my job. I'm dealing with patients and their disability and their money, right? And I feel like I do well because I'm talking to them and my coaching skills are really helpful there. And I feel good that I am assisting them and helping them. But I could do it for 6 hours. I don't need to do it for 8 hours.
Is that a possibility?
Anything's possible. Yeah.
It's so interesting to sit here and watch you coach yourself in that way. It's like, okay, but I could do this. Oh, and I could do that. and so I know, and you just brought up something new, that the work you do, is about helping people. But there's a limitation of the energy that you can give to that and have it feel good. Okay. So, but you defined your limitation. Okay. 6 hours good, 8 hours not. So what does that say to you, Rhonda?
I want to tone it down some.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Can you?
I believe I can. I agree with you when you say California is expensive. I'm thinking when I retire, I'm moving out of California because it's just a lot. And that's a possibility, but I keep waiting till I retire, and I'm not
sure. So based on time, Rhonda, so you've shared a whole lot of things here that you could do, and that was really interesting what you just said. I keep putting it off. What could you do now?
I can look with an open mind into how I can retire early and do what I want to do.
Interesting. Okay. So have you looked into that already?
A little bit, because I was afraid to see that it wasn't going to happen. So I just looked into it a little and then didn't look into it anymore.
You didn't want to be disappointed.
Yes.
Okay. So what are you going to do now? If that's the case, but you could be, but you're killing yourself right now by not looking at it, or it's hard. It's very hard. So what are you going to do with that possibility?
I think that's a really good point that you made, because what came up for me is, am I going to endure something that I'm not really happy in? Mm-hmm. Number two, there's no perfection. Mm-hmm. And am I going to wait to have my life back?
Am I going to wait to have my life back? I want you to hear that, Rhonda. Am I going to wait to have my life back? Am I going to wait to enjoy my life? Am I going to wait? What's your answer?
I think right now they're looking at sending us home to work. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe I can give myself a deadline. If it doesn't happen within the next year or so, mm-hmm. then I look more into retiring.
Okay. Year or so is very vague.
Okay.
So year?
It's scary. Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know, but that's what or so means.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And Rhonda, I mean, you work with people, and I want to acknowledge you for your willingness to even have the courage to step back and look at this. Many people do exactly what you're doing for much of their life, and live in very numb worlds, thinking that they have to give up to sacrifice until later. And later is vague. Later is vague. Nobody says that, a year from now you have to do anything. But I like that you named it, and I'm wondering if you could make a commitment.
I can. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I know that I've said is I endure, and I do. Mm-hmm. Part of that is I'm strong and all this kind of stuff. But even saying that gets old after a while. But I think a year is good.
I love though that you said that. I can prove I can do this. A lot of us women have that little mantra story in our head. I can do this. I'm tough. So I love that you put that out on the table. that endure? Is it, you know, is that a positive or negative? And what you defined to me was that it was a negative. And what you told me was just a matter of looking into things. You didn't tell me you were going to make a change. You just told me you were going to look into things, right?
Yes.
Okay. There was a lot of things. So tell me a couple things that you learned in this conversation.
One of the things that I said was endure, and equaling, I think that it's hard. And I have to make a decision or a choice whether I want that to be my life. That's one of the things that came up. And the other thing that came up was feel the fear and do it anyway. You know, look into what I have to look at with truth and open eyes, and, you know.
Okay. With truth and open eyes. Very good. So what's one step you're going to take now?
Look into the retirement, and then make a commitment to that year. See what happens. That's really scary, but I can at least have that on my path.
Okay. And I also want to go back to something you said earlier about enjoying the life I have. Yeah. Is there something in that you want to do?
I think be more intentional, you know, allow myself those times to enjoy, you know, and not have to be so unresponsible.
Okay, so I hear that. Responsible, endure. Yeah. That's all your story. You know that's the story that you get up every day with. You know, so I want you, if you would, take some time to think about, when you get up, think about the story. What's the story I'm going to live by today? Okay?
That's good.
Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you for doing this in front of everybody, to be willing to do this. I want to have a little bit of time for questions, but they may have a question or two for you. So if you would stick around, but, you know, I wish the best for you, Rhonda, you know, that you're doing amazing work for people. And what I want for you is to enjoy who you are as well as the work you do. Okay? Thank you for being here. What an honor. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Everybody's thanking you, Rhonda. I always love that they thank the client. So thank you, Rhonda. All right. If you want, everyone wants to come back, turn on their cameras. And if you have a question, you can ask the question.
I think you guys can kind of feel free to unmute yourselves and ask. Unless it gets too chaotic, then we'll raise hands.
Anyone have a question? So I want to ask you, you noticed I reflect a lot. Yes, shake your head. I use a lot of reflection because I want them to think about their thinking. That's all Rhonda had to do, was it had to come out of her mouth, you know, so she could actually look at her thinking. And it is much simpler than you think, you know, and so I do a lot of that. And I do ask close questions, you know, particularly at the beginning when we're trying to sort through what she wants. Okay, I will, because I want to narrow it. I'm drilling down to what it is she wants instead of what she has. So I will ask close questions at the beginning, and I hopefully will open them up. And again, the ICF never says you can't. It says that the balance of your questions. In fact, as an assessor, they have us count up the questions. Were there more open questions than closed? So it never says no closed questions. So there is a place when you're clarifying, is it this or is this, distinctions, or is this what it is? When she said it's so hard, I said, oh, it's so hard. Is that really it? So yeah, I will, to clarify. Yeah, thanks. Neil?
Can I have a question?
Marcia, we have Christopher who raised his hand.
Okay, and then Niels.
And then we have Niels.
Okay, great. Christopher?
Hey, Marcia, you might have answered this already, but I was very curious as to what is an indicator for you with the client that this is a good opportunity to reflect?
Mm-hmm. Generally, there's an emotion attached to the word. So when she said so hard, it's like, I could feel it. I could viscerally feel it, and so that was clear. But a lot of times I'm just picking up the key words. If they've said a word more than once, if they made a statement more than once, then it's clear that that's an important thing. I need them to hear it back. They may not be hearing that they're saying that over and over. So the indications are repetition, if I need clarity, or if anytime there's an emotional shift in the words that they use, then I want to understand what was that? What was important to you there? And so I will ask for that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Niels?
Hello. How can I encourage someone to reflect on themselves? Some people have issues reflecting themselves. I don't know, because they don't see themselves
you mean in the coaching?
In the coaching, yes. In
the coaching, yeah, because most of us don't do it on our own.
No.
Well, at all. I think that it's really important in setting up your agreement for the coaching relationship. I often will give them, when they, say, well, how do you coach? What's your style? I always say, can I coach you a little bit so you feel my style, so you see how I coach? Because otherwise it's abstract and they don't get it. And so we set it up right away. This is me. This is how I coach. But Niels, honestly, even though this is remote, I sometimes, if there's constant resistance, I'll just stop and say, so what is uncomfortable for you now?
Okay.
Yeah. I will stop and name the process. What's in the space between us? Tell me about what's going on. Is this just not something that they may not be coachable in this way. So I had one client who was set up for me, and I said to him, finally, I said, it's like we don't seem to be connecting in this conversation. He said, well, I thought you were going to come with all these books and resources and tools and tell me what to do. I'm like, I don't know who sold you on coaching, but that's not me, at least not in this relationship. I mean, when I teach, I certainly do that, but that's not how I coach. And, and I said to him, frankly, I think you know more than you think you give yourself credit for. He'd been promoted to a senior position. I said, you've been a leader for a while. What makes you think you don't have the tools and resources you need right now? You're just applying them in a different way. Would you be willing to look at that? And that's a question, Niels. The would you be willing to is an old negotiation technique, the getting to yes. Would you be willing to look at this with me? And if they say, okay, then you can always go back to when they get resistance. But you said you'd be willing, and now you're resisting. So I've had difficult clients. In my breakthrough coaching, I shared with them a video of a difficult client. And at the very end, he finally shifted. And that's why I shared the video. And they said, so why did you choose that one? The guy was like nearly uncoachable till the end. I said, that's exactly why. I wanted you to see how I stuck with it. And because we had a desired outcome, he said he wanted another job because of what was happening now. And then he kept backing up, but I need the money and blah, blah, blah. And I kept saying, but you said you can't tolerate this anymore. Is that still true? And so I get very direct, Niels, very direct with the outcome. But this is what you said you wanted. Is this still what you want? You know, okay. Or are you giving up on that? Either way, let me know.
Great. So basically, if they don't want to reflect, they have something they don't want to share, or they hide, or it's just an interpersonal relationship issue with the coach.
Well, if it's specific, then I would say it seems to me that there's something about this that you just don't want to share with me. I get it. Okay. I wouldn't push him if it's just an aspect. If it's just an aspect. Okay. So we've got one more question.
Yes, Caitlin.
Hi, Marcia. My question is, well, for me personally, what sends me out of great coaching and into problem solving mode is clients who really want, like they want a plan, they're anxious about the tangible outcome. And so what do you do with clients like that to kind of allow the process to slow down and be in that space of reflective inquiry and not, does that make sense?
I think so, but if I'm answering you and it's not what you wanted, let me know. Again, if somebody wants to take the time to plan, you know, I always start by asking them, you know, so what's the plan going to give you? What are you seeking that you're going to have once you get this plan? Okay, so I still am looking for a desired outcome. My sense is a lot of times, you know how they say you should always start with the end in mind and work backwards. Most people get stuck starting at the beginning, you know. So in that sense, I still want to know, what are you going to get as an end result? Okay, so what's keeping you from doing this plan on your own? Is it just time, and I'm giving you the space to do it? Is that what you need? You know, and maybe that's what they need, and not really coaching, but I want to know what's getting in the way of you doing this on your own. You know, so I had a client, a general manager, and his division was going to be sold, and his leadership team was sort of a mess. And, you know, they didn't know if they had jobs. And, you know, every time he came to the call, he wanted to talk about each of the leaders and how to deal with them. And I finally, the third time I said to him, do you know you're coming to the call with the same thing? You know, you just want to like report to me what each of them are doing and what you're doing. And it's the same story every time. Do you realize that? You know, and he stopped and he goes, I know, but I don't want to face my own fear. You know, and it turned out, he said, don't tell anybody. He says, I'm afraid that if I lose my job, I'm too old to get another job. I said, okay, so are you taking it out on your team, or is it just that you were afraid to face it? You know, you can talk about it with me. It's okay. You know, and yeah, it was really an interesting thing, but only because I called him out was he willing to share that. You know, because it was like, frankly, I was sick of it. Third time, that's enough. I don't want to hear it anymore. You know, and I'm tough with my executives, very tough with them. And they're usually appreciative of that. Okay, are we good?
Yes, thank you.
Amazing.
All right.
Thank you so very
much. Thank you.
Okay,
Marcia.
Greta or Petra, I will send you the PDF of the slides, and you can send them out to everybody since I didn't get to them all.
Great.
Okay.
Great. Everyone, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for participating, your questions. There's a survey that will go out in a couple days. Also know that there's will be the recording on our YouTube channel that you can watch if you landed a few minutes later. And there are the recordings of other webinars and chapter meetings. So make sure you check those out. So again, thank you all. Thank you all for joining. We've got a great year ahead of us. Make sure you have a look at our events on our ICF Orange County website. Petra Russell, our board member, is going to be speaking on February 4th about industry trends worldwide. She's got the industry scoop on coaching, so make sure you see that. We've got another big name speaker coming up, Michael Bungay Steiner. Did I say that right?
Steiner.
Yeah, he's a really fun, interactive speaker. Make sure you sign up for that and look out for a special speaker, hopefully for International Coaching Week in May. And between that, we've got lots and lots of stuff, webinars, community meetings. We're going to be starting up again, and chapter meetings. You are all welcome. So with that, we'll sign off. Hope you have a great rest of the day from wherever you're calling. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Marcia.
Yeah,
Thank you, Marcia. Thank you again.
Wow.
Thanks, Marcia. That was fabulous. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining.